Live stream. I'm going to try to do today's live stream differently. So we're going to start with a video. That will be this one. And this video is going to be short, and then I'll practice a little bit later. So this video is on neck herniation, that your neck blows up like a pufferfish or something when you play, right? And it's not a bad thing, especially if it doesn't hurt you and it doesn't affect your playing at all. Most trumpet players have some neck herniation, and if you watch videos of people playing, you'll see part or all of their neck sort of expand as they start to apply air pressure through the trumpet. So I'll show you mine. It sometimes gets quite bad all the way down to my shoulder here. That's just my jugular. But if you watch right here, and I'll try to do it so you can see it, if I stop the air and blow, you can see my skin sort of puffs out right here. That's my current herniation. Most of my students have some sort of herniation when they come to study with me, and most of them leave with that same herniation. So it's not a problem if it's not a problem, but it also indicates that there is some amount of pressure that you are not releasing into the trumpet. Now, that's a little bit of a physics misnomer, that we are probably never releasing all of the compression that we build up, because otherwise I'm not sure that anything would be happening, right? But if we're holding back too much of it, usually at the lips, right? Usually right here, that's why it happens when I close my lips, then I'm not moving the air out, and instead I'm having to absorb that air pressure backwards, and the neck happens to be the closest, weakest place, and so the air sort of gets between the muscles or something and goes into the wall here. And I'm not a doctor, I don't really know what's going on in there, but lots of famous trumpet players have had this, in particular super high note players, and that makes sense, right? Because they're generating the most compression. Bill Chase famously wore a scarf most of his career because his neck blew out completely, and you can actually go look at pictures of him. I encourage you to. But it's lots of players, and it doesn't have to be high note players. It can be just your sort of orchestral player who doesn't usually play much above high D, let's say, but if they're moving a ton of air and they're playing really loud a lot of the time, and so that also can cause some back pressure. And so what do you do about it is really the point of this video. And well, first let me sort of show you it in action, right? Usually we don't really get too much back pressure when we're not playing anything really extreme, but when we play up above the staff, or at least in piccolo in the top of the staff, you'll start to see this puff out. And I won't be able to watch because I want to make sure you have the best angle so you can kind of see it. But when I started my job here at ECU, I had it so bad because I was playing a lot of high note solos that I could feel it pop out. It sort of was like a real hernia. I would get some back pressure and then it would go boop, and I could feel that, and it would sort of throw me, and I would lose my compression for a second too because it was filling that gap, right? So I had to sort of like plan around that for all my solos, and it was pretty weird. So if you know what I'm talking about, then this video might be for you. How do you heal a hernia? Well, you just don't let it happen for a long time, and most of us don't have that long to wait and then to play trumpet later again, right? We want to stay in shape, and so that's not really an option, but that's how a hernia heals, is that you just don't let it go over and over again. And if that can't happen, if it's a hernia somewhere else, a lot of times it's really impossible for it not to keep pushing through that muscle wall, and so then that's when you get surgery. There is no surgery that I know of for this because it's not really life-threatening and it's not really a big problem, and so that's not an option. So our only options are try to mitigate the pressure so that it doesn't puff out as much and it'll still slowly heal over time, or just wait and rest and then try again someday down the road. And I don't know anybody who has that much time to wait. So, all right. So let's see if we can make it happen. Usually I'm trying not to let it happen, but let's see what we got here. So I don't know if you saw it or not. I tried to give you the best angle of it. It for sure happened. I think. And I don't know if it always happens is whenever I'm playing or if it was just on those high notes, but I'll watch the video back and find out. So what do we do about it? Well, there's really kind of three things that I try to think about. The first one, let's do the gimmick first, okay? So I got a straw. This one is from Sheets. I didn't open it yet because I just got it. And really, when you blow through a straw, yeah, sorry. When you blow through the straw, right, you feel some pressure, but you don't let it back up into you, right? Even a very long straw like this, the longer the straw, the more resistance it has. But this is not a very wide straw, and yet I'm really not feeling a lot of pressure come back at me. A little bit. Now, I also have a coffee stirrer from Sheets. If you don't have a Sheets near you, I am so sorry. They have the best made-to-order food. But this, I don't know why, who needs a coffee stirrer this long? But that's substantially more resistance. So why do you need a straw? Well, whether you have a high resistance straw or a low resistance straw, what you're trying to do is train yourself to expect a certain release of air, right? And if I don't get that, I'm going to change my oral posture, my tongue position mostly, and I'm going to try to get that air to sort of support itself. So in other words, the smoother the shape that I can make from my throat all the way to my lips with my tongue position, the more that air is just kind of already behind itself. If I have a big open oral cavity, right, and then I tighten my lips to make them vibrate, right, well then all that air is backing up all the time because I'm just sort of letting it out through here. But if I make a shape with my tongue position, then I'm making it smooth all the way to where my lips vibrate, and then the air wants to escape, but it also keeps its compression all the way up until the moment it does. And that's what we want. So blowing through a straw kind of trains that sensation. And I just want to do that a lot, right? It's not like I'm going to breathe anyway. I may as well breathe out through a straw whenever I can. And then the advanced version is just a smaller straw so that you really have to work on how you're mitigating that and that you're also not over compressing. That feeling, if you try to blow through this really hard, you'll have the same feeling as when you try to play higher than you really know how to. When you can do it, but you just kind of pinch and press and you can get that extra maybe minor third or something, right? And so you can learn to not let it get to that point. And I can feel this back pressure all the way down to my support, and that's where it even starts. I'm supporting better so that the air has more power, so that it's continually getting faster and faster until it gets to my aperture. And sometimes your aperture has to be quite small, but it never has to be smaller than the amount of air that's coming to it. Does that make sense? So I need to shape it exactly right so that it goes right through the aperture in exactly the right size. And these help me train that. So that's one way to think about it. That's actually two ways, right? The straw is one way, and then the tongue position being really smooth is the other way. And usually for me, that means that my tongue position is either too low, like flat on the bottom of my mouth, right, where I'm making all the compression with my lips, or my tongue position is too high, which is interesting, right? And so if I'm playing piccolo trumpet and I think, oh yeah, I've got to have a really tiny, small tongue position, then I'm going to raise my tongue position artificially, and then it's too high, maybe in the middle, let's say, and so I'm getting too much back pressure back behind the middle of the tongue. So, and I think I'm doing a good job because the piccolo kind of is working, but then at some point it starts to tighten up too much. And even though my lips feel fine, behind there, I'm still getting a lot of back pressure in the throat. And a lot of times you'll feel it as a closing of the throat, and that's because you're trying not to swallow the air. Your glottis kind of like starts to mitigate some of that too, and so you'll feel it if it's happening. So that's another way. Just make sure you have a smooth shape all the way from the opening of your throat all the way to the aperture. That's a long way to go from about, let's say, this size to, I can't really even show you, till the size of the hole in the mouthpiece, right? Very small. So that's another way to think about it. And then finally, a way that I don't think is real but absolutely helps me all the time is I think about the trumpet, right? We'll play the real trumpet, the big trumpet, I should say. So I think about this hole, right? And I know that the compression that I'm building and not releasing is all on this side of the trumpet, right? It's all me. But sometimes it's helpful to involve the trumpet in our sort of our concept of what's happening. So what I think is, all right, here's the trumpet. I'm blowing into it, right? And it's giving me some reflection back. I talk about that all the time. And that is true. You're vibrating the air that's inside the trumpet, and it's giving you vibration back. That's your feedback. But there is some compression that comes back as well, because it's a very long tube. It's 4.5 feet long. So, and especially if you put valves down, that's even more. And it's swirling around in there. So you're going to get some back pressure from the trumpet as well. And I imagine that back pressure coming back out of this hole right into my mouth, right? And if I have my tongue position flat against the bottom or something like that, then that air just goes, and it has to go somewhere, right? I know this isn't real, by the way, but hang with me. So it goes straight back, and now my compression is fighting to get out because it's also coming back, and it's going out and it's coming back, and so it ends up here. It ends up stuck in the herniated neck, right? Because it doesn't have it can't go any lower because, well, the throat is pretty rigid. And it can't get out fast enough because it's also coming back in. Now, again, is that real? No, probably not. But what I can do to mitigate it is I take my tongue position and I just go, right? I put it right in front of the hole in the mouthpiece and make sure that air, if that compression comes back at me, then it's going to hit the tongue and then kind of get recycled in the same spot in the front of my mouth where I'm generating all the compression too, right? Where the sort of focal point of that compression, it's going to get recycled right into there and just go right back in the horn. And that helps me a ton because it helps me find a tongue position that's releasing the air actually, right? Because you can build the compression up to a point, but at some point you have to let it go into the lips. And usually I need to open up my tongue position a little bit for that. And so I usually do dorsal tonguing or anchor tongue position. This is where I put my tongue basically on the top of my bottom teeth, but maybe even a little lower. And I generate compression right to the very edge of the roof of my mouth. And then after that, it all releases. And that really helps my lips vibrate fast and also helps make sure that I'm not building excess compression, which then causes tension, which then causes my herniation, right? So now I'm never probably going to fix this herniation. And as a matter of fact, it sort of is all looser skin because probably, I know when I was little, like 6 years old, I had my whole neck blew out on every side because, well, I was trying to play something that was way too hard for me, but I don't regret it. I just, I know that I can see the pictures of like little Gabriel with like, it looks like he has tumors all over his neck. It's awful. But anyway, so if I think of that, and it also sometimes is helpful to think of the straw being further in your mouth, like so this far back maybe, not all the way, don't choke yourself, don't make yourself throw up, but just like halfway through the mouth. And even though I know that's not the position of the tongue, it helps me remember that the whole tongue is involved in it, right? So let me play a scale and let's see if we can make it feel completely even. So once you're doing a little bit of straw work, and when you're playing, if you're starting to feel like, yeah, I'm not holding back so much compression, you really need to let your lips go too, right? That's where this is generated, is the lips are too tight and holding on too hard, and so they're not letting out the amount of air that you're putting in, and so it's coming back at you, right? So you really need to get your lips loose, and the hootin' out, sorry, I call it that, the embouchure by Tom Hooten, that will help you a lot figuring out how to release them. But I've also found students that actually clamp down more when they're trying to figure out how to use that device. So they need to use it more, but it's not a quick fix, right, is what I'm saying. But you can also just start by making sure that your lips are not rolled in too tight or otherwise like stuck too much in the mouthpiece. The aperture is too small most of the time, and that's what the problem is. And so it may be the way that you're getting your response. You may have to really redo some stuff. But anyway, once you feel like you've got something set up that's a little bit better using some of these tools, then it's time to just play some basic simple scales and see if I can keep everything working up and down. Let's say a basic F sharp major scale. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, pretty easy, right? And you just have to keep the air moving, releasing the same way. If you feel like it's getting tighter as you go up, I can demonstrate that. Then you need to keep releasing, and maybe you can't go up that high because you don't know how to do how to get a higher note without clamping down. Okay, well that's fine. Focus on the things that you can do and go right up until the edge. We talk about this a lot on this channel. Go right up until the edge, and then make sure you just kind of iron that out until those notes feel the same. Right? That's me just tightening and loosening my lips to get the notes. And clearly I don't have any control doing that, but that's because I'm not very good at it. I know a lot of people out there who can do that really well, but it's hurting them all the time. They get this herniation. They're also not as flexible as they might like to be, or their sound isn't the same, right, from high to low, even though they're really good at getting the intonation and most of the sound there. So, and that means they're almost there. There's really only very minute differences between really great and really terrible trumpet playing habits. It's just about finding them and then habitualizing the better version, right? So anyway, that's what I have to say about the neck herniation. I'm gonna, if you're watching right now, which one of you is, I'm gonna shut down the stream so that it starts a new video, and then I'm gonna practice for my rehearsal tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I will try to do a lot more videos during spring break, which is right now for me. Take care.